are live on Facebook.
Hello,
I love
Facebook.
it. Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Beth Copeland with Georgia Christian Business Network, and we are putting God back in business. And today is Wellness Wednesday. Yay, yay. I love it. Yeah, how about that? Can I do that? Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. And I am so excited. We have an awesome topic for the month of June. Last week, we had a guest, Julie Mills Watson, who facilitated an outstanding presentation on sowing seeds. And I know the acronyms for her seeds: sleep, exercise, eating, and drinking. And I had the pleasure, I have to take a moment to just send shout out to her, being one of her clients. And she facilitated a medical massage for me last Friday morning. And it was just amazing. And I'm telling you, she made some great impact on my physical well-being. Gave me some great instructions. So just kudos to her. She's a GCBN member now, and she kicked us off for the month on Wellness Wednesday, gave Pamela and Rich an opportunity to have a break. But they're back today, two of my favorite co-hosts here on the GCBN Wellness Wednesday platform, their primary host of this presentation. And I'm so thankful for both of them. They're both Georgia Christian Business Network corporate sponsors. And that is important for a lot of reasons, because not only do they undergird financially, I like to say, but I like it that they put their money where their mouth is. And, they support with their time. They add so much value to GCBN. Who we are, what we do, what we purpose to do, addressing the business owner from a holistic approach. And I just want to take that moment to say, thank you to Pamela. Thank you to Rich. I'm going to allow you an opportunity to introduce yourselves, just for credibility, to let people know who you are, what you do, and why it's important that we maintain good mental and emotional hygiene. We're going to talk through all of that today. So thank you guys so much for joining again today.
Sure. Absolutely. And as tradition goes, I introduce myself. So yes, like Beth said, my name is Rich Oswald. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia and in the state of Wisconsin. So for those of you in Wisconsin, I will be moving up there. We just closed Legacy Counseling Center in the town of Snellville, where everybody is proud to be somebody. That I'm still on the program for another few weeks, and glad to be here, glad to be supporting Georgia Christian Business Network. I do work with individuals, couples, and families, helping them deal with simple things that they may be just stuck trying to process through or get through or make a decision about, or things that are much longer term held in there individually or relationally that has been troubling them most of their lives, and they really would like to move past it, looking at it from a trauma perspective, but also from a biblical counseling perspective for what really drives us and what's important and how did God wire us. So that is where I like to play in the deep stuff and to transform. And I'm doing that virtually through the month of June for those who'd like to meet. And then I will be in the snow land where they average almost 4 feet a year of snow. So it'll be much different. And snow sports, winter sports will be, I'm looking forward to it. I'm weird.
Awesome. I hear you, Rich.
I'm Pamela Bridgeman, and in terms of the kind of counseling that I do the things that Rich does. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I also hold credentials as a certified master addiction counselor and a certified clinical trauma professional. I've been providing compassionate care since 1976. I'm here in Cartersville, Georgia, which is northwest Georgia, just 60 miles south of Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Whoa, awesome.
Chattanooga.
We have such a powerful topic today, and relevant and so timely. right now. So I'm excited to take every moment we have available to just dive in and, unpack this topic,
Mhm.
Who's
You
bringing
know,
our leading? Yeah.
people are really, most people really will focus on their physical hygiene. They know that it's important to get up and take a bath, brush your teeth, wash your hair. People do that, and they recognize that as important. Would you two agree?
Yep, for sure. It's kind of a natural thing that we're taught, right? That physical wellness and physical hygiene is important. As so you were saying that sometimes that's what am I looking for? A symptom of people who are going to be truly depressed, where physical hygiene is a difficult thing to
Mhm,
do. Taking a bath,
mhm.
combing their hair, brushing their teeth, those sorts of things. It can be more difficult, but it is something we're all taught and emphasized. Go take a bath. You were just outside. Sure, you can
Brush
just
those teeth for 3 minutes.
yeah. So that's like there's physical hygiene, but then there's dental hygiene, which I think is a little bit more difficult for people to steadily do, right? As your dentist, do you floss every day? Right? It's like this. Do you brush 2 or 3 times a
Twice.
day? Twice,
Mm,
you floss twice. See, Beth is taking us to a whole nother level of hygiene, dental wise. But
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
now we're getting to mental hygiene, and I think that's something even less talked about and less
And that's
identified.
kind of the point that I wanted to make, is that it's that same, like there's a stigma about mental illness. It's almost as though if I focus on taking care of myself mentally, am I somehow acknowledging that there's a possibility that I could have mental illness? And so rather than really focus on this mental hygiene thing, let's just, not necessarily ignore it, but at least not acknowledge it.
Mhm.
So
Which is
one of
really
the
kind of silly, right? You do the parallel with physical hygiene, right? It's like if I don't take care of myself physically, does that mean I'm physically ill? Well, you will become physically ill if you don't take
If
care
you
of yourself,
don't, right.
right? It's
And
so silly. We do that
yeah,
with,
and
we flip that with mental health.
right. And I like what Pamela said is if I focus on it, like if you comparatively to physical, in the physical wellness, we don't think twice about getting an annual checkup, but to acknowledge that I need a mental wellness checkup is saying, oh, I must think that, something's not working right. I'm not thinking, I'm off a little bit. And, and I'm telling you, people will start to say, well, you're challenged or something. And when it's all the wrong perspective, no, you're working through. We're all challenged. Can I say that like that safely? Is that okay, counselor?
Yeah, and
Yeah. And
one other
yeah,
point too, we will make sure that we take our bath and brush our teeth for interpersonal reasons as well, because we know that people may not want to sit
not
next to
attractive.
us, or people might not want to interact with us. So that if we know that our physical and dental health is important for good interactions and good relationships, why don't we think about the fact that our mental hygiene is also
Right.
good for good relationships?
Mhm.
Wow, that's a very good question. And I believe that society has shaped uh, the thought process in that regard and influenced how people see that. Because there are some diagnoses that have gone on diagnosed, however I should say that, that people didn't get the proper treatment. Had they been properly treated and diagnosed, there might be even more evidence of the opportunities for a greater number of people to have been challenged mentally. Do you see what I'm saying? Is that making sense to you? What I'm saying is, because the stigma is out there, people fear the opportunity or the labeling, is what I'm trying to say, being spoken of as mentally, in some regards retarded or something.
So let me see if I can
Okay.
help you. See if this
Okay.
makes sense. For instance, because of the stigma, say with the diagnosis of bipolar disorder,
Okay.
people will not go and see a psychiatrist, a clinical social worker, or clinical psychologist because they're afraid that they might get that diagnosis of bipolar disorder, and people have in their mind what, quote, bipolar looks like, which what most people think it looks like isn't
It's
at
not.
all
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
DSM-5 says it looks
Yeah.
like. And isn't it what, and being transparent, isn't what those of us who manage bipolar disorder behave like. So, but there has been this myth developed around diagnoses. And so, yes, people are afraid to take care of their mental hygiene because of the stigma, the myths that exist around.
Yeah, and the scripture passage comes to my mind of, right, men judge to the outside, but God judges the heart. I think that's a strong propensity of humans to look at the outside. So we look at the outside of each other, but also our own outside, and use that to judge ourselves. And for some reason, well, I'd say this, as my theory comes to mind, because we are all messed up people, we all struggle. We've judged by the outside, so now we judge, and everybody else looks all right. So they must be all right on the inside, but we know we're not all right on the inside. But we don't want to talk about the insides because we might be weird.
That is so good. That is so good. We measure ourselves by ourselves, which Paul said wasn't wise. But I love the scripture that you made reference to in 1 Samuel, when Samuel was going to anoint David as king. And that is such a good related to what we're talking about today, and what Rich's prior point, is because he kept choosing those that looked to have it together, and minimize the opportunity that David was God's choice. It wasn't seemingly the one that in appearance, and that's what prompted that scripture. God looks, he's not like man. He looks at the inward appearance, not the outward appearance. Man looks at the outward appearance. God's looking at the heart. And so you cannot make good judgments by going externally to see what you see on the surface, to determine the state of being.
And that construct of heart that we're talking about includes our spiritual being as well as our soul being, includes our mind, emotion, will, as well as that part of us that is existential and relates to God, our spirit. I was thinking perhaps we could talk a little bit about, before we talk about what good mental hygiene is, perhaps we could talk about why it's important to have good mental hygiene. And we talked a little bit about relationships. Can the two of you think of some other things? Some other reasons to have good mental hygiene?
I think managing stress, where coming back to David, thanks for putting the verse I referenced into context. There's the other part or some of the examples of David's, why was he chosen? I think it was reflected in his actions, his heart was. that he was by himself as a shepherd, and I think spending a lot of time thinking about and talking with God in the process of being alone. That I think that also helped him manage the stress of being alone out in the wherever he was, wilderness or whatever we described as, and having to fend off predators from the sheep and venture forth to do that. So I think that really helped deal with a intense environment at times. Because I don't know about you, but to be out by myself all day and night taking care of a bunch of sheep doesn't sound like a laid back kind of position.
Right?
Not at
And
all.
sticking with David later on, the
King and the
running from
warrior.
Saul, all of those life events,
Yeah.
all of those circumstances that if he did not have, and we're going to be talking about what mental hygiene in adults are on the last Wednesday of the month, but just the foreshadowing, one of his routines in terms of hygiene, mental hygiene, one of his routines was to pray and to journal. That's what his Psalms are. He journaled.
Well, I
Good
love
point.
that.
That's an excellent
Oh my
point. Yeah.
God. That
And he
chills over me.
prayed
Yeah.
two very
Yeah.
good practices for mental hygiene.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Excellent.
And if you were to maybe define in practical terms, you know, we've talked about in comparison to physical hygiene, dental hygiene, but what does a description, how would you describe good mental and emotional hygiene, and a process for developing that? I think I'd like to see that as an outcome of today so that people can more readily embrace the opportunity to say, you know, it's acceptable, it's okay that I submit myself for this evaluation, or however you want to term it. What do you think?
Well, being kind of the engineer, mechanic, construction person as well, using this contrast or the comparison between the physical and the unseen, right? We do physical hygiene. It's kind of like we do hygiene. You could say, I just put it as maintenance in a lot of ways. I think we were given something at a certain level, and we do hygiene on it to maintain that level to the best we can. Knowing things degrade over time, we can keep our body hygienic, right? But it's
Which
still
is
going
a
to,
maintenance.
it's
maintaining.
maintenance, knowing that in our world
Okay.
it's still going to go to decay. But if we don't maintain, it goes to decay faster than if we do maintain, right? Like you lose your teeth without correct dental hygiene, you're probably not going to retain your teeth as long as you could if you did better dental hygiene. So I think the mental wellness or mental hygiene is kind of a similar sort of concept if you can think about it as the maintenance factor. So when we don't maintain, and I think sometimes which is why we get to places where we have to do repair work before we can get to the hygiene part of maintaining, because we haven't maintained.
We have to rehabilitate.
Dental
Right,
hygiene. You got to go get
what-
a whole bunch of dental work in order to just get back to
That's good.
the way it's supposed to be.
So hygiene is habilitating. It's doing the daily things, and the psychological definition that comes actually from the APA, the Psychiatric Association, is that it's the measures taken to promote and preserve mental health. And then rehabilitation, that comes if you disturbed it. It rehabilitates anything that disturbs, is what hygiene does. And then it prevents mental illness. It's a way of coping, the APA says. It's a way of coping with the stressful world. It's the daily activities that support and maintain mental health. So,
Wow.
it's what do we engage in to
Mhm.
make sure that when I get up, I have a sense of peace. What do I do to make sure that I have a sense of joy?
Yeah. And I think that what we have to concentrate on is intentionality and purposing, especially with the environment that we are in with, and I don't know, correct, pushback, however, but I'm looking for news to be an opportunity to communicate something good happening. I mean, even if they just build 5 minutes into the news, is what I was thinking, of something spectacular or something small that has values of where we'd like to see in our country, in our nation, in our city, in our community, in our homes. If they just had, and I've been thinking about writing a local, you want to do something phenomenal, add a segment of, they used to have, and I maybe because I don't watch now, I just given it up. Jerome keeps me informed about things I need to know, and what I see a little bit here and there online. I just can't do it. But maybe there's an opportunity to create a corner of promoting wellness and goodness and things that somebody got caught doing it. Something I used to do in corporate for my employees. You caught someone doing it right, and there's a reward for that. And I mean, if we had something that would be an opportunity, yeah, you're going to publish everything that's horrible and wrong and that's happening, and
I agree with that.
but what would change just a little bit if you devoted, I'm talking a 3-minute blimp. I mean,
can I point out something that you're pointing to? What you're pointing to is hygiene isn't just what we do. Hygiene, the environment also is a part of hygiene. I mean, think about it. Even with our physical health, our environment. Are there parks where we can go and walk and play? That's a part of our physical, hygiene. So mental hygiene, emotional and mental hygiene isn't just the things that we do daily to ensure that we have balance and well-being, but it's what the environmental influences, or rather how the environmental influences impact us as well, is what I believe you're pointing to.
Yeah, by all means.
Getting out in the sunshine, right? That's what pops into my mind is this vitamin D production when we're in the winter and winter blues, and that the environment may be making it more difficult to have a happy attitude, right? So we have to intentionally do some things habitually to help that.
Right. I'd like to thank those that have joined us on Facebook today. I see Karen's made a post, Dr. Karen Bulwark. Hi, Karen. We've got to connect with you soon.
Hi, Karen.
She just sold a NACWE, National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs. So we'll be talking with you soon about a couple of things. But she made a comment on there that, Pamela, you must have started the business when you were 12. In so many I love it. And she also went on to comment, and I'm going to go here and read this. She says, so emotional wellness has to be developed, then preserved, maintained with intention and purpose. And how about that? Yeah, agreed. Definitely on point, and that's what I was saying.
We talked about hope before, Beth, and I think that Karen's comment about purpose, without purpose, you really don't have hope, and hope is part of what keeps you mentally healthy.
Right. I like that, and I like she repeated something that I said earlier about intentionality. You have to be intentional, because honestly, and this is Beth, and you guys know better, and you read the reports and stay abreast to keep your license. So throw me in the water if you want to. But I believe right now, today, I'm just going to go out here and I'm going to say it, okay, that there are so many people that are walking around depressed right now with all that's happening. And this is a drum has been filling my car, and I've been missing that gas. I happened to pass a quick trip on the way to work this morning, and I just happened to look at the numbers on the sign, and it says
$4.45 rather.
438. And you know, I gotta make sure when I get home, because I used to demand, my car's so old now, it doesn't, you know, Cutie's sweet, she's done me well, but it doesn't matter anymore. But I used to make him get the best grade of gas for my car because I thought that it was so important to keep her maintained and running. And maybe that's why she's doing me good in my late state. But what I wanted to say is the numbers that so I want to make sure, though, today when I talk to him, when I get home, you are getting the cheap stuff, the cheaper stuff. That you see how tables turn. But if I looked at that when the last time, I know it was like $2 and $3, you know, maybe something like that. And I got my Kroger points. But that sign for me driving in this morning, and I get Wellness Wednesday checkups all the time, and then I'll call you up if I need you. But that kind of was like, what?
That's back to environmental
Where,
impact.
Yeah.
Back to environmental impact.
Yeah.
On our mental hygiene. It all influences how well we are able to keep balance in our life. And that's what mental hygiene is about. It's about keeping balance in your life. Balance.
It's a great word.
Right. I love that. I love that. And I know we've talked about some already, but when you take it to really kind of articulating balance, those stressors that get us out of balance, what are ways, or is this outside of the scope of what we're talking about today?
We're going to be going more in depth in each of those because we're going to talk about mental hygiene with children and mental hygiene with adults. But what we are talking about is why it's important to have a good mental hygiene. And, you know, we talked about the fact, coupled with stresses in life, but also we can't have good relationships without them. And we can't realize our full potential without good mental hygiene, because good mental hygiene leads to mental wellness. Right? And we can't realize our full potential without mental wellness. Makes sense?
For sure. Yeah, and I like that the hygiene is also a way to help get better health. I just think of what does the dentist tell you to do if you haven't been doing the best hygiene? Well, start, and that it can be a treatment method as well as a maintenance thing. So it is very important to connect the two, that hygiene and health do go together in it. So,
and sometimes, as you just alluded to, you have to reach out to the professional. You have to reach out to someone who can help you see those blind spots, to help you see what you are missing. Whenever I go, and we keep using the dental analogy, but whenever I go to the dentist, it's those teeth way in the back that the hygienist is like, okay, Miss Bridgeman, I see that you have been flossing way back there. I'm like, I can't reach way back there. And I have an electric toothbrush, and my electric toothbrush won't even do the job, right? But not only is she able to say to the hygienist, able to say to me, okay, here's what you need to do. She's able to tell me how I can do it when I believe that I can't.
Right. And I love that you use that dental analogy because it's really good. It works, Pam. We'll keep using it because I got to stretch it because Rich was saying, I'm going to show off because I do it twice a day because I have to, because I have a bridge and I have a gap and I have to thread a floss. It's a 20-minute ordeal morning and night for me to do my teeth, right? Because of that. Yeah. But so the deal is this. So don't hate on me. But the deal is this. When Pamela talked about going to the back, you really can't see the back. And when we take it to the our lives that we live, openly what we see is what we start to judge by. Like Rich earlier, God looks at the heart, man looks at the outward, but it's those dark secrets that we have back here. Or my teeth look fine and you don't know it's a gap that has to be flossed specially, But I do know that the awareness is so important. So that's why I love Wellness Wednesday, and that I applaud each of you for the work, and Dr. Karen and all of those that take our platform. The work that you do is essential, but we've got to promote more awareness. Like the segment that I'm talking about on the news, other people need to own the opportunity. And then there's an opportunity as well for those of us that understand the assignment, is that we have got to create an environment, Pamela's talking about environment, that is conducive for people to be able to say without judgment that I have an opportunity to participate in a mental wellness checkup, or there may be an opportunity for you to talk with someone. And I know someone that is available to share with you. I do it all the time. Now, I don't know if they follow through or not, but at least we're given that space. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awareness is urgent.
I have a friend who pastors a fairly large church here in the Atlanta area, who he is very intentional about making sure that he addresses mental wellness with his congregation, and he has opportunities for them, to reach out and get mental health counseling if they need, and will often preach sermons that highlights individuals in the Bible who managed mental health challenges and how they managed them well or not so well, but as a way of normalizing or making it normative, if you will, rather than saying, just read your Bible, because there are people in the Bible too who had the same issues that you do. So not just read your Bible to get those really high and uplifting things. We need to do that. Oh, absolutely do that. And the teaching. But sometimes the scripture says that all things were given for our edification and learning. So that means even those things where David had to play his instrument to get Saul to come down out of his manic state. So we need for people to know, and for us as Christ followers to not be in denial.
And David had to encourage himself when the Amalekites came against him. 1 Kings 20, chapter, when that is important that we know that there are going to be opportunities for us to be depressed about a situation or a matter, or about life in general.
Or any of those other things that we've talked about in the past. Right. Remember, we said that the Bible wouldn't say be anxious for nothing if we didn't get anxious sometimes.
Right. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about good mental health hygiene, we created a case for it, basically. Yes. Saying that, the environment, the surroundings, what is happening, especially what we've come through with in 2020. I mean, that within itself, and then the mass shootings, the killings, that make no sense. You know, when you have an 18-year older, an 18-year older, you know, I don't know about you all, but imagine your child at 18 and it wasn't considerate going to shoot somebody down and take someone's life. So you know there's something that wasn't connecting, that there were some writings there at some point on the wall. And then for those of us, those that are involved directly, that have lost their children or their family member, but then those of us that are onlookers, that's an impact on us as well. And so those type situations, and it doesn't have to be to that magnitude even. It could just be the way that I said earlier, information is published is always from the negative, and we're not feeding our spirits with, you know, what good is happening, you know, what is happening, some of the opportunities, and I hear them that nonprofits are doing to better the world, or people in general that highlight one of the superstars if you want to keep talking about them, and stop talking about them on TMZ and what they're doing and how they're fighting and how they're living, and talk about some of the good that they're doing. Talk about just a everyday person, you know, going out and some of the opportunities that they're impacting in their local community. Things like that. It doesn't have to be any great symbols banging. Just put some good out there. That's all I'm saying. Put some good out there, you know? Yeah, that's what I need to hear. And if you need stories, I got them. If anybody is up there listening out there in the world.
Those are the notes that I had on good mental hygiene for today. Because
Awesome.
everything else I say for the
So,
specific.
so what were the you were looking at the reasons to do or to focus on mental hygiene.
Yeah, I'll read all 6 of them, and then perhaps we can discuss them.
Oh, yeah.
So we've already talked about coping with the stresses of life, being physically healthy. Talk about how mental health impacts our physical health. Have good relationships, make meaningful contributions to your community, work productively, and realize your full potential.
Work productively is something really interesting jumped out at me with that. We talk about optimizing performance, and we don't always think about mental hygiene for optimizing performance. But if you're it pops in my mind as a high performance athletes, they're talking about, we think of an athlete, we think of the physical performance of their bodies and the ability to do things, but in the training process, there's a lot of focus on the mental as well, to be able to endure, to be able to push, to be able to
motivation,
stay focused, yeah, all those things. And they know that those things connect together, and that is a massive impact of mental wellness, mental hygiene, mental training on the performance in the athletic event. So that it's, why is that not quite so emphasized in our normal everyday life? I mean, we still go back to the physical performance. We need to eat and sleep. Well, that is an important thing. And I should exercise. That's an important thing as well. What about taking time? What about journaling? What about doing stuff David did?
What about being self-affirming? What about being self-motivating?
There you go.
So I went to see Top Gun Maverick this weekend.
Oh, okay.
Okay, spoiler alert. So there's this one scene where Maverick's old partner who died, his son, is in the jet, and he has a moment of self-doubt, which could have made him end up crashing this jet that's going at this incredibly high speed. But going back to optimizing performance, one of the things that they train fighter pilots to do is that mental focus, that mental, they have to do that to get beyond those G forces, because just a force of that is that strain.
Yeah.
And so watching the mental focus, this is what I thought about in terms of mental hygiene. He had to say to himself, you can do this. And actually the writers of the script had him, verbalizing that self-affirmation, that self-motivation, which is a good mental hygiene technique, which then helped him not only to optimize his performance, but also to save himself and to save those around him. And so good mental hygiene is important, right?
Yeah.
For our own lives, also for those around us as well, because our environment impacts us and we are part of somebody else's environment.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point, that mental health for relationships as well. And if we don't do good physical hygiene, we don't necessarily smell so good, or dental hygiene, our breath isn't great, or teeth don't look great. So we have a harder time being in relationships when we smell bad, or our breath is terrible, or whatever other negatives come from poor hygiene. The mental hygiene affects us just as well, right? It's just unseen. What comes out in maybe what we say, or choices we make, or the attitudes we may have.
Our inability to focus.
Yep, there you go too. Yep, performance.
And if I can't focus, I can't be present with you, Rich. If I'm not focusing, I can't be present with you. And if I'm not present with you, then you and I aren't really communing in a healthy way. It's
true. It's a great point as well. Yeah, that we're affecting what others benefit from us as well. It's neat. I mentioned that to people in counseling, and to keep reminding myself of that as well. If we don't live authentically to ourselves, not only do we not have the benefit of living authentically, but the people around us lose out on experiencing the real us as well. And that can be a challenge for some people. I know it has been for me at times, or if not most of my life, to be able to connect with people because I didn't know all of who I was, or I didn't embrace who I was, so that I didn't bring myself to other people. I brought who I thought I was supposed to be, or who I thought they wanted me to be. So it was inauthentic. So even though they were communing with me, in some ways they were communing with a false me. Right?
Because sometimes, Rich, I don't know, being able to be authentic, and do we give or create an opportunity for people to feel good about who they are and not pretentious, or not to fake? Also, while I'm talking, I stand corrected. Thank you, Chi-Chi. That TMZ offers good stuff. See, that's why I don't watch. But every time I watch, and they're pointing out something being there. So I want to go publicly and say I stand corrected. Thanks for sharing that information. Because I'm going to be honest. If it comes up and I start hearing about some of initially, whenever I turned the channel and there it is, it's always something they're highlighting that somebody did to somebody else. So I stand corrected, and I don't really watch length long enough to see and give them that opportunity, but I stand corrected and I appreciate that feedback. Okay. All right.
The authenticity. Here's the thing that happens when we are not authentic. If people get the sense that we don't trust them enough to show us our real selves, relationships are built on trust. commitment, foundations of love. That
Mhm.
if I'm not being authentic, I'm communicating to you that I don't trust you enough with who I am. So I'm going to give you something that I think you can handle.
But Pamela, can I ask a question? I don't trust you, or I'm picking up vibes that, and I know it starts with us, so I'm not trying to justify, but yet I don't know. I'm still stuck on a little bit on the environment that you're in, uh, sending a vibe, if you will, that, I'm not sufficient in bringing my true self, as Rich was talking, to the table. And so I think I need to give you, and I'm back to but I don't know. You hear what I'm saying?
It's the same.
Yeah.
Yes, as Rich said, perhaps I am not feeling safe enough in myself. I'm not
Right.
believing in myself, and therefore I don't feel safe
Mm-hmm.
sharing
Mm-hmm.
myself with you because I don't know that you will accept who I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
However, if I have good mental health, if my hygiene is good, then I've
Right.
learned
Okay. Mm-hmm.
self-acceptance. I've learned self-love, which is not pride. That's a whole different thing. I've learned self-care, which is not selfishness. That's a whole different thing. When I'm walking in that good mental health, then my relationships, or rather when I'm performing that good hygiene, then my relationships are healthier.
Yeah, and we have wisdom for who to share with and how much to share as well. It's both, and the environment impacts us, but we also get to choose how we interact with the environment.
Absolutely.
Right. When we think less of ourselves, we end up hanging out in environments that promote some of that belief, possibly. Right. And so then the environment continues our poor hygiene, which we start thinking differently. We'll probably start doing differently. We'll start associating with different relationships, and that helps as well. So, yes, Beth, it is the environment, and it's both and. It's part of what, as a counselor, dealing with the environment we grew up in was not one we chose. And that impacted us initially hygienically and belief system wise. But we didn't have a choice of that. That
That one we
also,
didn't.
what's that?
I said that one we didn't.
Right, we
Right.
didn't, but it also then sets us up sometimes to think that's the
Okay.
environment to pursue, because that's what we know, right? Like you're taught how to care for yourself physical hygiene wise, right, by in your environment growing up. So that's what you know moving forward. And maybe you've met people who, for you, it was a no-brainer. It was part of the environment that taught you to take care of yourself in a particular way. And you might have met people who they didn't have any idea that that was something they needed to do or was even reasonable. So they were living their lives deficient in even the knowledge of it, because of the environment they grew up in. So same is true for mental hygiene. We didn't pick the environment growing up, but as we get more awareness and we start developing better hygiene, we can now choose the environments we're in as well. And that can be a difficult process to walk through, but it is very much environmentally connected together. So yep.
It's that learned behavior.
Absolutely.
I have facilitated teachings on knowing where you're tolerated and knowing where you're celebrated.
Yep.
And because of that learned behavior, the tendency is to flock to
Toleration.
way that the toleration, because if I grew up in a setting, home front, where I was tolerated and I didn't feel opportunities to celebrate, if I was consistently told where I didn't measure up, so to speak, and I get the impact to me is that I'm being tolerated. You don't really see an opportunity anywhere to celebrate me, and that communication continues throughout my life. And want to tell you another detriment to that is maybe not the more obvious is I start to expect, even in settings where people want to celebrate me, the expectation is because of this learned behavior that I'm not going to ever be celebrated, and we marry into that thing. So why don't you tell us at this point what we can expect next week, Pamela? How about that?
Next week, we're going to be talking about good mental hygiene in adults. And we're going to go more specifically in how adults what specific things adults can do. No, we're doing children next week. What specific things we can do to help children develop good mental hygiene habits.
Wow. Awesome. And that is wonderful. And I can't wait to glean from you all from this topic. And I may have a couple of points to add. Rich, if you have
will, because a lot of it is going to be about parenting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes. Great topic then. Yeah. To expand on that. Yeah. From the parent side of that makes good sense. And I'll say
we're the ones setting up the environment, right? That kids are learning hygiene in.
I need to say goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
So that I appreciate you guys, and I look forward to next week.
Oh, sounds like a plan, Pamela. And for those of you that have joined us on Facebook Live, we sincerely, Rich and I, appreciate the opportunity, and Pamela as well, to each Wednesday present these topics for thank you for the interaction there. If you're comfortable next week, come join us on Zoom. We would love to have your interaction here, and even maybe comment if you have some comments openly. I also want to thank Lisa Muth for being out there. I'm not sure if Jessica's out today. She had meetings and such, but thank you guys so much for your support and what you're doing for us. And for those of you that are members of Georgia Christian Business Network, I just want to say thank you for your support in putting God back in business. Yeah, I'd also like to invite others to join us. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or a member, I would love to extend this personal invitation to ask that you visit our website at gcbnetwork.com. Look for opportunities of how you can get involved. I want to highlight for you on Friday, we've got Marpia and Amy that's facilitating our GCBN Small Business Friday Noon Nugget. It's going to be outstanding. The last time she was on the platform was just so powerful. So we're looking forward to her facilitating that. Also remind you that God Golfing Girls is upcoming. August 26th is near, and through the 28th at Stone Mountain Marriott Resort. We would love you ladies to check out our website, look for an opportunity where you can get involved and participate in such a phenomenal weekend. Listen, we're doing great things. You're going to see a newsletter, hopefully in the next couple of days or so, not later than Monday. It's going to have some new opportunities. We're going to have an on-site on June 28th here at Cornerstone Co-working for our local members here. And we also are planning to date the one for Middle Georgia. But we also have a GCBN member benefit that's upcoming that we'll get out to you soon. Thank you so very much for your support and your efforts and participating and just sharing, liking us on Facebook, enjoying our posts, sharing them with others. We have such an opportunity where we encourage you on Monday with a motivational from our gifted writer and executive assistant Lisa Muth, and she also has opportunities for Sundays where she publishes encouraging scriptures and such. So I'd like to invite you to join those, because the reason I'm highlighting those, because those are great drivers for good mental and emotional hygiene, because that's the environment that we want to promote. Thank you guys again for joining us today. God has a plan and you are a part of it. See you later, Rich.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.